Welcome to Talking in Stations. This is Matar here. The date is, help me out, Rundle. April
26th.
26th. Thank you. All right, April 26th. And we have an industrial show for you today in preparations for tomorrow's patch. We know it's going to be a big one, and we assume it's going to be industrial changes that are coming. So we're going to look into that with our guest. We'll introduce him in just a minute. First, I want to say hi to Rundle. How you doing?
Great. I here after a successfully surviving the long weekend. Well, not the long weekend. Felt like a long weekend. Let me put it that way. I survived. I'm here.
Let's put all those in a different order. Okay, so if you managed to catch yesterday's shows, it's a pretty good one. We had Villy and Dunk on, and a little bit unexpected. The show kind of evolved into that, but we talked about the transition that's happening right now in the war, where the last Keepstar outside of the 1DQ constellation is going down probably in the next 24 hours, if it's not down, right? Yeah, so probably in the next 24 hours. And this signals a change, a massive change, in that the final assault on 1DQ will probably begin. And what we saw yesterday over the weekend too was all the groups kind of pausing and saying, let me update our people to let them know what's going on. So you saw Gobbins have a town hall. You saw Villy and ProGod have a meeting with their guys. We assumed the rest of the Pappy forces had meetings. And the fireside chat was about that same transition. That was from the Imperium side of things. So basically people are pausing to say, look, this is what's going to happen. We're transitioning now to this final assault phase. Okay, let's actually go over some of the headlines, and then we'll bring in our guest and talk with him. Actually, I better introduce you now because you're on camera, so it would just be awkward if you were just sitting there. Yeah, all right. Let's actually meet Ravandel, is it? Is that how you say it?
Yeah, Ravandel. Well, Ravandel, yeah.
Yeah. Nice to meet you. You're a young man with a very wise old voice, which is nice.
Yeah, I always get commented on that.
All right, well, good. It's nice to meet you. Tell us a little bit about yourself, like when you started Eve and what you got you interested in it in the first place, stuff like that.
So I started Eve in, probably 2012, with a very long intermittent breaks, because like everybody else, I was introduced into the game by a random friend that then far too quickly pulled me right into nullsec, not knowing what I was doing at all. So that didn't go for very long. Eventually I came back via some other friends, and was quickly projected into wormhole space, actually. But I found a really good group there at the time, and that made me really stick around with the community. Mainly, it's all about the community for me, or my corp, really.
Yeah.
Well, that corp has been through various transitions, and I'm in a different corp now anyway. But started at wormhole space, then worked, let's see, so after that we went to Providence, which eventually fail-skated into by Wrecking Crew. And from there we moved to various places, and we are currently in the Recon Alliance, so that's part of PanFam Group.
Right.
And our corp is Eire Engineers.
Oh, Recon, you're with Recon. Okay, so what's your corp name again?
Eire Engineers, or Eire Engineers. It's a little bit of how you spell it.
Yeah, awesome. All right, well, look, it's nice to meet you. Welcome to Talking in Stations. Hang out with us while we talk a little bit about news, Rundle and I, and you can feel free to comment if you want to. And then we're going to talk about some of the cool things that you've been up to with the industrial stuff that's on its way. Okay, Rundle. Let's look at the news. Over the weekend, as I said before, that some of the larger groups that are involved in the war had their meetings. You had Gobbins with his town hall, ProGod and Villy had their meeting, and Matani did a fireside, which he normally does on now Sunday. It used to be every Saturday, but I think he mentioned that he wanted to move it to Sunday so that he could react to the other things that were going on instead of going first. Did you, Rundle, did you hear these, by the way, any chance?
No, as part of my survival plan was to avoid them. I figured if I got sucked into that, then I would. No, I unfortunately just was a little too busy. So I've been catching up on notes. There's been a lot of people out there who have been summarizing and stuff. That's where I've been getting my news from.
Yeah.
So and we're going to cover that on detail on Wednesday, anyways, right? So I got a couple days to really sit down and listen to them. And
yeah, absolutely. I'll give you just the broad strokes were that Gobbins had a town hall and he talked about basically where they were and how the war had gone so far and that they were going to be attacking 1DQ. That was going to be, to him, it seemed like that was going to be the finale of the war. So there's a data point there. And he said, don't expect a big rush and a massive push with everything all at once. It's going to be something that's slow and methodical. And he basically said, if you're looking for that big, giant M2 style fight, that's probably not going to happen. And there's some confusion around this because that comment was something that the Imperium seized on. But with talking with Gobbins and getting some clarity, he was saying, that's not what I said. I said, we're not going to do that at first. If it happens, it happens. That anytime there's a big fight, it's usually a mistake. M2 was actually a mistake. And that's true for all of EVE's history, really. There are very few head-on collisions with everything you've got. There are very few of those. There's a lot of size strength checks, they call them. But there's not necessarily an actual collision and commitment of forces. It usually takes some kind of a slip-up, unexpected situation for that to happen. Gobbins is saying the same thing in this. He's saying, don't look for that fight to happen. If it comes to that, it may come to that, fine. But he doesn't see that as happening because the plan isn't to bring everything to bear at once. The plan is to slowly erode the structure integrity of the constellation over time, just like they've been doing it for the last few months, and that's been a successful plan for them. This is a whole different scenario because in 1DQ, there are a lot of Imperium people, thousands. So they didn't defend everything else in Delve that much. They're definitely going to defend 1DQ. Situation's different. We'll see if their strategy works out. ProGod and Villy said essentially the same thing. They said after this Keepstar falls, we move into the siege. He remarked on a great number of things, but one thing I thought was interesting, the big takeaway for me, what ProGod Legend was saying, if they're going to bring everything to bear. So he was saying they're going to bring capitals, everything's a part of it. And he also said, make sure that you are ready to go because the fights are going to happen really fast. And that's important. It's going to be lightning strikes, rush forms. I think that the people who can bring the most amount of pressure to bear the quickest can get in and get out, possibly, or can take advantage of mistakes. And I think that's a very volatile situation. You have a lot of people on standby, constantly being vigilant. Things can go sideways at any time. So it's going to be really interesting. And then finally, also Villy in that conference ticked off how much damage they have done over the last month. And it's astounding when you sit back and think about how many Keepstars have been destroyed, how many structures have been destroyed. And you can say, hey, we don't really care about those structures anyway, but the sheer number, again, another data point, is a huge amount of fortune that has been destroyed, and some of it dropped as loot. Matani, for his side, on the fire side, was even one of the first question that came at him after he did his speech was, why are you angrier today than you were on the meta show? Like this, and he said, because I've been thinking about it more. And so a lot of his anger was aimed at Gobbins and the comment of, we're not going to fight you with our big assets or whatever. And the Imperium wants that fight. That's a possibility for them to win. Instead of slowly being eroded where they can't do much about it, they're looking for that opportunity to have a head-on collision because they might win that. They might also lose it, but they might win that. And that's really been their strategy. They want to provoke a fight. But what he did talk about, which was interesting, again, another data point, asset safety. Started going over the ins and outs of asset safety. And that tells you what they're preparing for. So a lot of these messages, all three of these, are we're doing great, guys, but we got to prepare and we got to do things this way. That's what those things are for. But you'll find that the moments where it's a little quieter, where it's a little more downplayed, there's some truth to those moments. And so the fact that the Imperium are looking at asset safety tells you something. That's a reality now. It's also a way of softening something, like floating a balloon, a trial balloon, to say, like, how are people going to react to this? And it's kind of like softening people into it. So you mention something 1 week, and then 2 weeks later you mention it a little bit more, and then 4 weeks later you talk about how this is a reality, and you've eased people into the reality that you needed to, instead of just waiting 4 weeks and then shocking people. So these guys know how not to shock their players.
Setting a runway or setting up a storyline or a narrative is the other way of thinking about it. That's on all sides, not just the.
It's a technique of leadership.
Imperium side. Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so that's basically,
and they're all showing that, right? They're all exhibiting. All of the leaders on all sides are really this weekend. That's my takeaway. Was they really all kind of stepped up and really just kind of really started describing this next phase all together. They really talked in unison about a next phase. That to me was the big takeaway. So it's here. It is now. All three sides agree, basically.
Right.
Or both sides.
Yeah, both sides, I guess, right? All right, so another thing that happened was, okay, so we want to tell you, we're going to take care of that in much more detail in the future on Wednesday. We're going to skip a day because of the patch that's coming through. We're going to want to focus on that, but...
Panic.
What's that?
Panic.
Panic, yeah, we're going to talk about the panic. But you'll want to... you want to be here Wednesday when we actually listen to the audio recordings of these leaders and break it down. We have like a reaction stream to it, that sort of thing. So you want to check that out. Okay, I'm going to pop something up here on screen that I want to show you guys. Can you turn off your screen for a second there, Rev?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, because we're going to get to yours next, but I want to share my screen with this really cool thing that came out. Let's see if that came up. It didn't, so try that again. Oop, 1 second. All right, there it is. So this guy made a painting on Reddit. Not on Reddit, but he made a painting. It's Ashra Khan. Let me actually get to it. There it is. And it's Matar. So this artist depicted Matar. Let's see if I can make that bigger.
Should be able to just click on it.
Yeah, I'm working with all kinds of size issues because I'm on a laptop with the streaming screen. I should probably get monitors and do this right, but
it's all good. It's a very nice painting.
Yeah. We'll give that to you. But this is really cool because he actually went through lore stuff and figured out using descriptive language what it should look like. And so he was able to draw it, and that's what he came up with. I'll give you guys the link to that now. So we're going to look at this later on, probably on the weekend, but I think it's fantastic artwork. Let's get in there close. You can see he's got islands and stuff, and I think all these landmarks are called out in EVE Online backstory literature. So for him to put that together is kind of neat. We've seen something like this before, the D&D map that was made, D&D style map that was made. So, but this is really cool, and definitely check that out there on Reddit. Give him some kudos.
So I'm guessing that all these places are relevant in the lore from Matar?
Yeah, the Jade Coast, the Greater Sobaki Desert. These are all things that might have been described in Chronicles, but it's never been visualized.
Yeah. Well, the Jade Coast being visualized in that commercial.
Oh, that's right. You're right. You're right.
So the artist here basically went through all of that lore and
That's a
kind of
lot of
worked
work.
it out, right?
Yeah.
Farah Orta, I think here's who we're talking about who did it.
Yeah.
And he went through all the different archives and literature, books, online, wherever, and just really kind of put his mind to laying it out in an art a painting like this, full of artwork.
Yeah. All right, that's awesome. So you guys can check that out, and that will be on Reddit. We'll look at this again. I think maybe on the weekend show we'll have a look at it. All right. I think the last thing we need to do is Rundle. You're going to tell us about, what do you got?
Well, I got a couple quick things there. I've put some. There's some links for you to follow along if you want. I'll kind of hit a few of the quick items here. Make it kind of quick here, 2 or 3 minutes. Bombers Bar completed their 48-hour fleet. They actually went 52 hours. CCP Convict came out. I caught a number of the streams. Various people were streaming it. Looked like a lot of fun. There's just some raw numbers here for you guys. They, like I said, 52 hours of fleet time, quite impressive. 212 holes were rolled, 53 billion killed. They got 3 Rorks, a Moros, a Revelation, a Fanny, and then a Titan was bubbled. The frat leader bosuned half the fleet. That was I heard some comments that was the first Titan that a number of these pilots had seen, and they kind of dropped on him. It was quite interesting. Most expensive ship was a 6.4 billion Rourke, and they had 122 people at the largest point. So it's quite impressive. They did a really good job over the weekend. I read a few pieces here and there. I won't go into all the details. Twitter and stuff like that. A lot of people had a lot of fun, and like I said, the streams I watched looked like people were having a good time.
Awesome.
So that was excellent. News, just in general. We have 3 brand new packs. We talked about this last week when this last weekend was the last time to buy these new starter packs. So those have been added to the Eve store. They do revolve a little more around the new what's the word I'm looking for? The new experience packs, right? Like I'm looking for it here, so I can scroll.
Expertise.
Yeah, the new expertise pack. The most expensive one. Here's what I want to really spit out. Only the most expensive one has the skill points. The Plex doesn't grow as big as the previous ones, but so they are, kind of more around the expert systems. That's what I was looking for. So they do revolve around the expert systems. Celebrating EVE Online's 18th birthday, they have announced a player video contest. So you can, propose or send up your own video, and they have some winners or prizes set up for the winners. 3,000 Plex, 6 million Omega, or 6 months Omega, sorry, and an Arctic IMT EVE Online Edition watch. Second place, a couple thousand Plex and 4 months of Omega, and EVE Collector's Edition USB Rifter. Third place, 1,000 Plex, 2 months of Omega, and the same Collector's Edition USB Rifter. So there's all the rules and stuff are linked on the news site. I can provide those links for you later. Just as a reminder for those people interested in the CSM 16, today is the day that they opened for application processing. It goes from now, the 26th of April, to the 14th of May, so it's about 3 weeks to get all your applications in and processed.
Oh, I'm laying on the graphics there. Hold on. You're talking about the CSM 16?
That's all right.
Yeah, I'm a little behind.
Yeah, CSM 16.
Before you move on,
just given the date.
Hold on. Before you move on, can we just take a real quick look at the Katya statue here? Yeah, it's just so beautiful the way they've dressed this up with fireworks and everything.
Absolutely. Yeah. Sorry.
It's Katya Say. Let me say to people in chat here that are looking at this live, we have a Katya emoji. So pop that into chat. You'll see it's this little head with the black hair. That's Katya. So you can pop that into here. I'll do that for you. Just want to celebrate that picture because it's so good. Somebody put up a go for it. No, not that one. It's this one here. I'll put that in. There you go. Somebody, hey, Hermitook found it. All right.
Yeah,
anyway,
a little slow.
Yeah.
Is that the Mark Queen that got sleeper minded?
No, this statue is of a player named Katya Say, who basically went to every system, including every wormhole system that EVE has. So she
Did it first.
class 1 explorer.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And never died. And didn't die once doing it.
Never died. Yeah.
Never
Okay.
died, yeah.
Let's move on then to.
Yep. There's another link here. So real important. I think at the top of the show, we kind of said, that we think it's happening tomorrow. No, it was confirmed by CCP Paradox on Twitter. In other news, phase 2 of the industry update will arrive to Tranquility tomorrow.
There
so
it
it is confirmed that we will get the industry change on the 27th tomorrow. Which, you got that there?
Panic. Right.
There you go. Panic. There you go.
All right. Okay.
And that'll lead us to, that's going to end up leading us to our guest really well. But just before that, I just want to give a very special hello to Abby Rova's fiance. Thank you for listening. Although with our guest today, I could be in trouble with his deep, luscious voice. And so with that, we should go on to the interview.
Okay, I missed all that. But okay, now you can share your screen, right?
All right, let me get back into it.
Yeah, all right. We're going to transition to the interview now with our industrialist friend. You got to know him a little earlier in the show. And now we're going to look at, talk about industry for the rest of the show and look at a tool that he built. What do you want to start with?
Again, I guess first of, like I said, I'm Ravandel. And I am a pretty big industry nerd, I suppose, with making tools and that sort of stuff. Also really like other aspects of the game, actually, like the small, medium Gank PvP with a corp. That's our national pastime. But as my own thing, what has really happened is basically I started doing industry and ended up really liking it. But what the issue was that I had is that every time I wanted to build anything, I needed to make an entire new spreadsheet. So eventually I made my own tool instead, where instead of just building one single thing, I could list a whole list of items that I want to build. And then it will take into account everything that you need to do to build all those items instead of just one. And then from that, it extended and extended and extended. And by now, I have a website attached to it. And it's a free-to-use tool for everybody. And it's got some really nice features that I think will be really useful with the industry changes as everybody starts to realize how the new stuff is built.
Yeah. Before we start, can we put that your website in chat? And we'll put it on the show notes too, so people can look at your website. And can you tell us what it is?
Sure. It's called Ravworks. I'll link it in the Twitch stream. Oh, I can't. Can somebody else link it for me right now?
Yeah.
All right. Nice. Okay. Yeah, so it's called Ravworks. Inspired by Fuzzy Steve's Fuzzworks, of course. So yeah.
All right, there it is. Ravworks, Ravworks. So that's actually ravworks.com. Easy enough.
Yep, indeed.
Okay. Do you want to talk about industry in general, or do you want to show us how this works?
I guess we can do both. But so let's start off with how the website works and how you can actually use it to your own advantage. And then afterwards, I have done quite a lot of number crunching on what's actually involved in building capitals and that sort of stuff after the changes. And also some pretty interesting other little aspects, side notes, that are pretty relevant when you're actually trying to set up your own industry facilities or network of people and that sort of stuff. So, I suppose the start of it, I'll just go through the website. So the start of it is that if you want to produce something, then much like with any other blueprint tools, you can type in, okay, what I want to build. But like I said, instead of just building one thing, you can enter a list of all the things that you want. So for example, if we want to build, a few guardians, and I want to build, I don't know, a basilisk, whatever.
Those are similar.
Yeah, they're similar, but they're different ships, I suppose. Then what you can do is you enter what you want to build and how many of each and what material level. And then in the end, it will produce a production plan. And the production plan tells you everything that you need to buy, where you can copy all the information as well into a spreadsheet if you want. Anyway, so we'll tell you everything that you need to buy. It will tell you what your end products will be, what all the parts is that you will be building as well. Because, of course, if you're looking to build multiple things, what you might be interested in is also building either the whole chain or only building a segment of the whole chain, right? Because a lot of people, they only do reactions, whereas a lot of other people, then they buy those reactions from other people and they use that to build the end products and then move that over.
Yeah.
Now, I figured I wanted my tool to be able to do both or be able to choose, basically.
This is handy because in the future, we assume people aren't going to build everything themselves. That seems to be the future of production. So that might be very handy in that way.
Yeah, with how much wormhole gas and that sort of stuff is going to be needed for capitals at least, then it's unlikely you'll all have it available locally and, you know. So basically what it does is you can enter in all the stuff that you want to build. It will tell you what do you need to buy to actually build those things. And then in the jobs to run segment, it will tell you, okay, for each category of jobs, how many jobs do I need to do and how many runs of each. And then you can just copy paste it to some kind of spreadsheet and count everything and just run the jobs in game. And basically it's an automated spreadsheeting tool.
Yeah.
So instead of having to build a spreadsheet each time yourself, it does it for you.
So on a basic level, you say, this is what I'm going to cook for a dinner. I'm going to have 3 dishes. And then it puts all your all your ingredients in order and tells you how much those ingredients are going to cost. It's a lot like a cookbook.
Yep. Yeah, exactly. But instead of just one recipe, it's multiple recipes at the same time. If you want to, anyway.
Yeah. My whole production line for the next week, for instance.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So how I use it myself actually is with a friend of mine. We do all our industry together, and what we do is we mostly build T2 cruiser-sized hulls and that sort of stuff. And how we do it is we set up a production line or a production plan for about 2 weeks, and then another one for about two weeks, 1 week later. And then there's like first stage of all the reactions that you have to do. And then after the reactions, you do the actual components and building the ships. And then whilst that stage is going, you start with the reactions of the other plan in the meantime. So you keep everything churning the entire time. Or at least that's the closest we try to match.
So before we get off this page, right, and a lot of numbers here, quickly go over where are you getting the numbers, what is it relative to what's coming? Let's go there.
How do you mean, roughly?
Meaning these are the numbers that you're pulling from the universe today, and these are the numbers based on the markets today.
Yep.
Or is it from the markets 6 months ago, or is it that's what I'm like. Walk the audience through the numbers.
All right. Well, so the all the prices and that sort of stuff is all based on the JITA price in the last hour, roughly.
By the way, the guys in the crowd already broke it because it's having a 502 bad gateway error.
Ooh.
504. 504 gateway timeout. I got the same thing.
I got 502.
Okay. Oh, did you? I got 504.
Yeah.
That's all right. Well,
mine's 2 better than yours, apparently.
Is it getting hit too hard? Did we send too many people there?
Maybe. I'll have to check. But the
numbers,
that kind of live coding.
As long as yours is still working, we can look at it.
Yeah. My local version is fine.
Okay.
But that's definitely something that I'm going to have to trace. It's actually pretty nice because debugging.
Yeah.
Anyway, so all the prices are based on the JITA price in the last hour. I think the sell price is based on the 5% cheapest percentile and all that sort of math. But it's just straight from the ESI, essentially.
Yeah.
So the big important thing here is the cash flow table, where you can see, okay, this is the value of my end products, either the buy or the sell price. And it also tells you, okay, what are the materials that I have to buy? What's the price of that? The job cost, the sales taxes, and that sort of stuff. And then in the end, you have the profit. Now, with the profit, there is a little bit of an extra linchpin because of a lot of stuff when you're building it. You will end up with some stocks as a leftover, right? So because of how reactions work, where every run of a single reaction, you get 100 or 1,000 or a few thousand of output, but you may only need like 20 units, you will have some leftovers.
Right. Let's
Now,
explain that really clearly. When you do a reaction, you have minimums. And so you have to produce a batch of 1,000, even if you only need 20.
Yes, exactly. Okay. That's it. So that's an issue I ran into multiple times. And what I ended up doing is basically accounting for all the stocks that you start with and all the stocks that you end up with, and then taking that into your profit calculation. So at the bottom, you see the expected profit of making these ships, either with or without taking account of the stocks. Because as you can see over here, there is in this particular case, there's 70 million ISK worth of assets in stocks left over because those reactions have to be done on batches. And then, well, if you realize like that, well, I can just use them up next time, then you should look at, okay, that's also part of how much money I've generated. So I should also take that into account of my profit.
Excellent. Right. And so for the taxes and job costs, that of course changes based on some skill levels and and the ratio or the percent of the index for the whatever system you're in, and what type of Retaru or HiSec and a NPC station, blah blah blah. Is that adjustable? Can I change that, or do you just kind of use a set?
Yeah. No, we will go into that in a
okay.
second.
All right.
No, that's fine. The only other thing I will say that's a feature that I've found myself to be very useful is if you look on the right here, it says the stocks, right? So that is all the materials that you may already have.
Your current inventory.
Yeah, exactly that.
Your stockpiles.
So what you can do is, if you look at the basically, if you're doing one run, you will have some of these leftovers because the reactions have to be done on batches and that sort of stuff. And what you can do is then copy paste all those leftovers into your stocks table. Let me actually do that from my thing right now. Oh, there we go. And then we resubmit it. And now it will take into account all the stocks that you already have and all the parts that you don't have to build anymore as a result.
Terrific.
So it now will only tell you, hey, I only need to do those jobs that I actually still need to do, and all the others I don't, and that sort of stuff.
Cool. So you only have to buy what you need instead of the full. Yeah, that's great.
Yep. So it's really, if you have a really large inventory of stuff that you don't really know how to use up, and you don't know which parts you actually still need to buy and build and stuff, it does that sort of stuff for you. That's really useful for using up all those random little things that you have. All right, so going back to Rundel's question, what you can imagine is
repeat the question just so we know what we're answering.
Yeah, so I was asking about the job costs and the taxes and all that stuff, because it can change depending on where you do it and some skills and all that stuff. That was that question, right? Okay.
So what's the deal with that is, in a larger extent, is there's of course a lot of things that you might decide that you want to do or don't want to do, right? Because you have the structures that you're building in, which change the material efficiencies and your time efficiencies. You have the system cost indexes. You have the sales taxes, like Rundle said, and also there is of course the decision: do I actually want to do this subsection of the whole production chain or not? Right? So, because like I said, a lot of people, they only build end products or they only do the reactions and they don't do the full chain of everything. And all that sort of stuff can be configured in the tool by going to the industry config page. So this is a little bit involved, I suppose. But how it works is you have to set up your industry config, and that's all those decisions I was talking about just then. And then using that industry config, everything else on the website is calculated. So when I just did my production plan, it took into account my industrial config that I have set up. So it takes into account all the structures that I have set up, where the rigs these structures have, where they're located, where I actually built the various categories of items in what structure. It takes all that into account, all the material efficiencies, etc., etc., and then based on that, it produced that production plan. So it should all be accurate to the exact number that you will also see in the game when you try and do the job runs.
That's incredible.
Yep.
How long did it take you to write this? Just as a side note, how long did it take you to do all this?
I started the tool in its first form probably about 2 years ago. Okay. But in total, I would say roughly like 800 hours, something like that.
There's another question that Nick Bison asked earlier. I don't know if we answered it, but will the update to the blueprint material changes automatically kick in after tomorrow?
No, not automatically. I will change it tomorrow, probably.
So you'll be busy doing that tomorrow?
Yeah, exactly.
So it's going to be
a few hours after downtime.
Yeah. Since we're taking a couple quick questions as well, the Dr. UK asked, can this be downloaded and hosted elsewhere so the load on your own server is not overrun? A little relevant right now, but or even downloaded and have like a local version.
We were talking about partnering on this. I was trying to convince him because it's such a good tool and stuff.
Okay, well.
So maybe we're sabotaging it to give you more.
Yeah. Well, it's pretty interesting that it crashed, and I actually wonder what made it crash. So I have to look into the debugs. Because when I actually look at how long it takes to calculate anything specific, it tends to be around under a second to calculate anything. So I would actually expect that a lot of people can use it at the same time without failing catastrophically like it had.
Yeah. Well, maybe one of the guys in the audience DDoS'd it or something.
I doubt it. It's probably some kind of. It's all at the end. It's a hobby project for me, right? I have before this website, I had not done anything website related at all. Just some coding and Stack Overflow, Googling, and that's it.
I don't think it's your back end computation side. I think it's your server. That's hit the.
It might be. Might certainly be. I will have to look at that. But yeah, so when like I was talking about with the industry config stuff, so you can set up all your rigs and your efficiencies, that sort of business, all the real important number crunching stuff to actually get the number right of how much you need and how much money you will make. And also, there in the really useful feature over here is the production blacklist. And over there you can say, okay, which section of this whole production chain do I want to do myself and which sections do I not? So for example, if you don't want to do any reactions for your own T2 ships, etc., then just hit this, don't do the reactions, and go back to your production plan. Well, I suppose I have to make a new one now. And then when we look at it, it will show that, hey, now I only have to actually build advanced components and the end product and, well, the T1 hull, and everything else it ends up buying for me. So you can choose this sub only that I only want to do specific subsections.
If you pick the second stage, it automatically excludes the first stage. Is that how I'm reading that?
Yeah, of course, because the first stage goes into the second stage, and because the second stage is you're buying that part, and you never have to do the first stage anyway. That's how that works. Gotcha. So from that, there were some more things that I ended up doing. For example, what I figured was a really nice and useful aspect as well is if you can really easily take into account or can really easily see how much profit you will be making while building various things. So that makes that by that we go over to the profit margin tab, and here you can keep a list of like all the items that I want to build or tend to be building every now and then. And it will tell you, okay, what is the price of that item? If I build it with the configuration as I've set it up, then how much money will I make by building it? What profit power would it be? How much is actually sold in JITA per day? All that sort of stuff. So you can have like a really quick overview of, okay, I'm building certain things. I know how I'm building it. I know with what structures I'm building it. Given all that, what is my profit going to be? And I can see it for a lot of different items.
Great. So that's the bottom line, right? You want to use that as a guiding information on should you even get involved with something if you're going to sell it on the market.
Exactly. So if you set your industry config up once, it's a little bit of a hassle, especially for new players. I fully acknowledge that. But once you've set your configuration up once, then you can just type in a lot of stuff and it will tell you whether it's actually worth your time building it or not.
Great.
So I guess
there's more to this tool too. It gets really, really interesting in a few minutes.
Oh yeah, there is more. Well, if there's any questions or ever go too quick, just feel free to interject me. Otherwise, I'll just keep on going. So the next part is, because I do T2 manufacturing myself a lot, invention is pretty important. So we go to another thing. Well, let's start with a normal T2 item. So over here, I can, for example, see, okay, let's say I want to build the Guardian, and I don't know what kind of Tech2 blueprint I want for that, right? Because, well, I'm assuming everybody knows here how it works. But with Tech2 industry, you first need a Tech2 blueprint. And the Tech2 blueprint originates from from a blueprint copy that is the Tech1 version of whatever you're building. Right, so with a Guardian, you first need a blueprint for a Guardian, and a blueprint from a Guardian comes from the blueprint of an Augurer when you do an invention job on it. Now, when you're doing that invention job, you can choose what kind of decryptor you want to use to actually do that invention job. And then based on this decryptor, it will tell you, you will get a different blueprint as an output. So some decryptors make your blueprint more efficient for material efficiency. Some decryptors make your blueprint more efficient for time efficiency. And some decryptors have a higher probability of getting a successful blueprint as an output.
So it shows you what the decryptor is doing for you, what the end result might look like.
Yes, exactly. So for example, here we can sort by material efficiency, and we see that a process decryptor gets the highest material efficiency output.
Yeah. For those that don't know, I'm going to skip ahead here. A decryptor is a variable you can throw in. They're expensive on the market, but if you buy one, you throw it into your experiment and you get a mutation on the experiment. So you might get a better material efficiency. Therefore, your cost of building something goes down because it's more efficient. Or you might get a run of not 2, which is normal, but of 4 or 5 or 6 because the decryptor replicated how many you can build off that one copy that you've created. So that's the variable that you could buy off the market. That's what decryptors are used for.
Yep, that's exactly it. So what I've done here is, of course, in the end, if you're building something like a Guardian, what you're not really interested in is, okay, how is the blueprint that you get with this decryptor. What you're really interested in is, okay, how much money am I going to make if I use different blueprints, right? Because some blueprints have a lower material efficiency level, also have a higher one, but it's more expensive to get, for example. Now then again, what you can do here is that this table shows you, like, okay, given using a specific decryptor, I then get an output blueprint copy that costs me a certain amount of ISK, and then given all that, and given my industry config of how I'm building things, what is the profit that I will actually make when I'm building an item from that particular invented blueprint?
Well, this is fantastic. So it's advising you, because you can see the results through the calculator, basically, what the best option is for you for that item. So what decryptor should I use when I build a jump freighter is going to be totally different than what decryptor I use for a T2 damage control unit, for instance.
Yeah, let me have a look.
By the way, normally you don't use decryptors for ships and expensive stuff, not usually for modules, but
Yeah, exactly. So what you can see, for example, over here, well, now we'll go into some of the this version I've here locally hosted is based on the new data export with all the new recipes. So
the
the
numbers are
jump
going to be
freighter
crazy.
prices are, yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Numbers are going to be crazy. But what you can already see in this one is that, hey, with Eire, you actually want to have that process decryptor with the highest material efficiency level because it's really expensive. With the Guardian that we looked at just then, I think the most profitable one was one with a slightly lower material efficiency, but a higher chance of success.
By the way, a little bit of advice from Talking in Stations here. Decryptors that work on material efficiency are probably going to go up in price if they haven't already, because people are going to want to be even more efficient in the future as prices go up.
Well, yes and no, right? Because decryptors are only involved into Tech 2 manufacturing. And right now, Tech 2 manufacturing isn't changed yet much, apart from really a jump freighter.
Yet,
exactly.
I'm pretty sure it's coming.
We know it's coming. We know it's down the pipeline. I don't have a clue how long, but it's coming eventually.
Well, jump freighters and marauders are both Tech 2 ships that have changed. So for those two,
well, marauders actually haven't changed. The only thing that's changed about them is actually getting the Tech 1 hull. Right, so you have to use an apocalypse to then build a paladin.
Oh, the marauders didn't change. Oh, I thought they had.
So the whole Tech 2 section is the same. The only thing that's changed is the Tech 1 hull, because the battleships are changed.
I thought I saw new price points for jump freighters for some reason, but maybe that was just
jump freighters have changed. Jump freighters have changed.
So
but
they
that's
did change
because
those.
it's but that's specifically because it's a capital as well.
Oh, because they did capitals and okay, interesting. So
yeah. So marauders haven't changed apart from the Tech 1 hull. Jump freighters have changed both in the Tech 1 hull and the Tech 2 hull. So that's complications.
All right, let's try to move along if we can, because we're going to run out of time in a bit. But go ahead and go to the next phase.
So yeah, anyway, so this here shows the given your config, given all of the information that you've input, what is going to be your profit with the various blueprints, and also for those curious with Tech 3 manufacturing, it can do the same with Tech 3 Invention. So with Tech 3, there's actually two choices that you need to make: the decryptor and what kind of ancient relic you're using to get the blueprint. A little bit of detail. Anyway, it can do both. And let's not go into that for too long. So I guess next up is the Tree-Viewer.
This is really cool.
Which is the most recent edition.
I haven't really seen anything else like this. Watch this, guys. This is great.
All right. So I guess we start with something really simple. Let's start with really something simple. So over here, you can see the Tree-Viewer, and what the Tree-Viewer does, it gives you an overview of everything that goes into every other item, like, well, literally like a tree. So it's a tree of a bill of materials, essentially. So you can see, for example, with this caracal, hey, I need so much titanium, etc., etc. With really easy stuff, it's really not complicated at all. But with stuff like a battleship,
like that's just minerals, for instance, right there.
Yeah, so this is purely just minerals, that's it. But once you go a little bit bigger with a battleship, for example, in the new stuff, you will see that, hey, there's now a whole tree of everything that needs to be done to actually build this battleship.
Yeah.
So where in the past you used to only need these minerals, you now need to have these additional components at the top here as well.
So you show how those are constructed and the relationship between all the ingredients and the stages, which is just amazing.
Yep. And what you can do as well is if you hover over a particular node, it will highlight all the things that are only relevant for that node.
Oh, that's so nice.
And specifically, if you click on it, it will also order it nicely for you.
It collapses it. Fantastic.
Yep, exactly.
Nice.
So you can see, for example, hey, for this Armageddon, I need 100 life support backup units. Now, for this 100 life support backup units, I need some of this R for Mungu over here. And you can see the numbers that you need. You can see how many cubic meters it is. And you can also see what percentage of the total amount of this that I need goes into specifically this thing that I'm looking at right now. So specifically, I'm looking at life support backup units right now. And as we can see over here on the right, we see that 25% of all the R4 moon goo that we need goes into this life support backup unit specifically.
Yeah.
And we can also look at things on the right-hand side. For example, we can see, hey, this is all the stuff that the hydrocarbons go into. And this is all the stuff that atmospheric gases go into.
Great. Because so you can see how much is drawing on that item, so you know the quantities.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Like this thing is getting used a lot, so I better get a lot of it.
Exactly. And also what I think it's going to be really useful for is figuring out, because how industry used to be done is basically, okay, essentially everything in capitals and battleships and stuff is purely based on, okay, I need this many minerals. And all those minerals you can simply get from compressed ores, right? So you just go to JITA, buy all the compressed ores that you need, jump freighter it over to wherever you're building, or move it over anyway, then reprocess all that stuff. And then once the reprocessed minerals, you just build it there anyway. And it's pretty small to haul. With a lot of these new items and with wormhole gas, with biomaterials, with some of the moon ores anyway, you can't compress all that stuff. So that actually means that with the new industry changes, having access to your minerals locally, or only buying those parts that are easier to haul, and then maybe building those parts that you can build locally and are really difficult to haul, you will have to take that into the equation of what segments do I actually want to do and what segments don't I want to do.
Right.
So go ahead.
These guys in chat are climbing all over themselves to send you ISK, so they want to know your in-game name. But we're going to get to all that at the end. There's more to show you, not just this, but go on.
Yes. So this here shows, okay, what's my material used in? How much of all the materials do I need when I'm for what subsection of the thing? And you can see, you can make it over. Get all the subsections.
Okay, so that's a battleship. Let's get more complicated. Do you have carriers or dreads or even a Titan, so we can see just how big these changes are going to be in the future?
All right. Let me do one thing real quick, and that is I want to show one additional feature that it has.
Okay.
And that is if you look at, okay, so this is more complex. It's not super ultra complex yet because this is T2 manufacturing.
What are we looking at here?
So this is a Guardian, so a Tech 2 cruiser. So over here you can see, okay, hey, I'm looking at a nano-electrical microprocessor in this case. And for that, I need, all these amounts of various moon goos and whatever else. But what it also does is, what you can do is it can say, hey, I want to apply my configuration, right? So we talked earlier about having this industry configuration, where you say, what are my efficiencies? What sections am I doing? And what subsections am I not doing? Now, normally, it shows you everything right from the start until the end with the base material amounts, which can say, hey, instead, I want to apply my configuration. And then it will now basically hide all the parts that are not relevant to you. And as well, it will update all the numbers needed to be in line with your efficiencies and your structures that you're using to build everything. So, for example, if I were to say, hey, I don't want to build nano-electrical microprocessors, then it would hide the whole subsection of this and all the materials specifically needed for those nano-electrical microprocessor. In my case specifically, I've said, hey, I don't want to build my own fuel blocks. I buy my fuel blocks instead. So it hides everything that goes into building those fuel blocks here on the right. So that's a little bit of an extra thing you can, if you choose what you do and what you don't want to build in the industry config, then again, you can also see that here in the tree viewer. Come back.
That's really helpful. You can figure out what stacks, for lack of a better, what layers of the build you want to participate in. All of them.
And also if you think like, okay, it's really hard for me to get this particular thing, look at what it goes into, then say, okay, maybe I just buy whatever it goes into, and then eventually it will hide that extra material because it's no longer relevant for you.
Yeah.
Yep.
Really
so
good.
let's go into I suppose, like you said, more complex stuff now.
Let's blow this thing up.
Let's blow it up.
Oh,
so this here, this here is everything that you need to build a capital post changes.
Oof.
So that is full chain right from the base materials, your base wormhole gases, your moon goose, right until the end to build a revelation in this particular case. What you can do again here is click on it. It's a little bit messy. It's not immediately intuitive right now with this particular tree. And that is partially also because it's no longer as clear what materials are used for what as it used to be in the previous setup. Like the physical, mental complexity of building something is much more difficult post changes.
Right. But you can always isolate something and see it.
Yeah, of course. So what we can do here is, again, we can say, okay, maybe, for example, I know that the core temperature regulators is something, a battleship needs one of them. A capital is going to need 250 of them. It's a really big component actually in building a capital. So here you can see, okay, if I click on a core temperature regulator, this is all the stuff that's involved into specifically building this core temperature regulator, and it will hide everything else. And then over here you can say, okay, maybe I'm interested in something else. Okay, that is everything that's involved into building this other subsection of my revelation. So in this way, the idea is, okay, people can really use this tool to figure out which parts do they want to do, which parts don't they want to do, and just buy it from other places or actually sell to other people, that sort of stuff.
And I think that's what's going to differentiate builders in the future, is knowing when they're wasting their time and not dealing with that layer of production and isolating what they're good at, what they want to do, what they have access to. I think the really, really good producers are going to be the ones that can control that information the best for themselves. And this tool, I think, will help a lot with that.
Yep, I think so as well. So let's have a look. So for example, with the new capital components, you can see that they need wormhole gases now and minerals as well. But also, if you're looking at a particular wormhole gas, you can see, okay, this particular wormhole gas here is 1500 M3 cubic meters I need of this. And to make that wormhole gas, there is about 4,000 cubic meters or to make this reacted wormhole gas, there's about 4,000 cubic meters of raw wormhole gas that goes into it. So that sort of makes these trade-off decisions of, hey, am I going to be hauling in all this raw wormhole gas and doing all the reactions myself, or am I going to just focus on buying this component from other people and then they build it? So it's like all these niches that are going to likely exist in the new changes.
Yeah, that's the other part of it, is when you figure out, like, I'll never want to, harvest gas, then you can meet somebody or look for somebody that likes doing that and make a friendship with them and basically build a supply relationship with a different player.
Exactly that.
By the way, I love how you can grab the nodes and move them around to conceptualize.
Yeah.
That's really great.
So it's really nice if you, or for example, there's multiple layers of relation, like this node over here needs something from this column, needs something from this column. Well, sometimes you just want to put it right next to each other.
Sometimes you want to see more lines, but yeah, I feel that it helps you conceptualize like things.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, that's roughly the tool as it is.
Well, the thing is, if you look at this, like we're looking at, what are we looking at there? A Revelation Dreadnought? Okay.
Yes.
It looks like, wow, what a web that CCP has created. But what you're doing here is showing what it's going to look like in the future, and that looks pretty scary. That looks intimidating. Yep. But if we were to look at a Dreadnought now, it would also have a bunch of lines, but it would be mostly capital building parts that lead to mineral costs and stuff like that.
Yeah, if you look at Dreadnoughts right now, it's very much simpler. There's a lot of intercollected lines that doesn't change, but the depth of the tree is simpler.
But now with the new changes, this tool is fantastic because you get the real hard part is understanding the variety of things that are going into building a dreadnought, and that's hard to understand.
So, for example, what I've found is that a lot of the old capital capital components here, they are basically roughly the same, but instead of how they used to be, where they just need minerals, they now need minerals and some wormhole space gas, right? That's just you'll learn that sort of stuff. For example, an FTL interlink communicator is a component that every capital with a jump drive needs. Maybe
that's a new component.
Freighter needs it as well. Yeah, that's a new component, exactly. But you can see that a hell of a lot of the stuff, I don't know if I can swear over here, but anyway.
No, you can. You're good. If it's in European, it sounds different.
Nobody will understand. No, but
thanks, Nth Dimensional, for the raid. Go ahead. By the way, let me reintroduce you for people that just arrived because we had a raid here. But this is Ravandel. He's created an industry tool that you can visualize the actual construction parts that you will need to build things in the future. And it's got many uses, but we're looking at the latest and neatest tool, which is in a node design, finding out like all the layers of ingredients that go into whatever you're building and how you can isolate them. And that's what we're looking at now. We're looking at a dreadnought, the Revelation.
Yep, exactly. So what you can see is, so what I was going to talk about here specifically was that with this tool, you can really go into detail, like what components are actually just noise as essentially, and what components are actually really necessary for me to build. So for example, if we go to this FTL interlink communicator part, which is something that essentially all capitals, as far as I know, are going to need, then you can see like, okay, there's a lot of Moongoo related items that all go into this FTL interlink communicator, but you only need a little bit. And also all this Moongoo over here, so that's stuff that you normally need for Tech 2 manufacturing, is exclusively used for this FTL interlinker and nothing else. So if you say, hey, I don't want to build an FTL interlinker, but I just buy that part from the market, then you don't need to worry about all this Tech 2 Moongoo here and all this particular wormhole gases, the high tier wormhole gases as well, actually, which are exclusively used for this FTL interlink communicator. So especially, so actually, if I go back into my industry config and type in radar FTL interlink communicator over here, and add that I don't want to build an FTL interlink communicator now, submit. And let's see, let's go back to Revelation.
You opened to suggestions in real time?
I suppose.
No.
Right click on the node and exclude from build or something.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, I suppose. That is, given how I've coded it, possibly a little bit complex to do in practice.
Yeah.
But
maybe at some point look how much simpler that got. All that Moongoo went away, right? So
yep. So all this Moongoo stuff is now hidden because, and nice. Also this high tier wormhole stuff is now hidden because it's no longer relevant to you. Because instead of building this interlink communicator, you just buy it instead.
Yeah, It's kind of like an avoid system in EVE Online. You don't want to travel through it on autopilot, so you put it in there and you don't go near it. And this is fantastic because you really can then focus on your building the way that you want to build, and not have to worry about hiding things that you're not interested in building. You're just going to buy those parts, so you don't care about their ingredients. And that's great.
Exactly that. So yeah, that's essentially what the tool does. Apart from that, I've done quite a bit of analysis on how much material is actually going to need to build all the different things. So I don't know if that's where we want to go next.
Yeah.
But
I do want to go there. That's the last thing we'll hit. I just want to reiterate to the people that just joined us that this tool is down right now, unfortunately. It was up when we started the program. But you have the address. It'll be in show notes, and just go to it later on after the server gets all fixed up.
Yep. I'll try and make sure it's back up and running tonight, hopefully.
So there's just some technical people out here. What, real quick, what languages did you use, front end, back end, could you give us a quick overview?
All right, so the backend is based on Python. And then what I've done is I've built what is I believe I'm a hobbyist, so I'm not entirely sure
You're a
on
hobbyist.
all the details here. Yeah, it's strange, but it is
Huh.
how it is. So I don't have like a educational background in website building. I do have in a lot of other math stuff, but anyway. So I've built it in Python, and I run a Nginx server with UWSGI, which then runs a Python client internally. And there's Flask, I think Flask is the physical server software, let's say, or the part to translate my Python code towards something that's actually runnable on a website. So yeah, it's
Very
Python, JavaScript, Flask, that sort of stuff for the people that want to know.
Nice.
But this is not a hobbyist product here. You must know programming.
Oh yeah.
Clearly.
No, of course. Yeah, no. No, I have the whole website part is a hobby.
I see. Okay.
It's a hobby that I've never done before, but programming is quite something that I do quite a lot.
Yeah. Can we have a look for fun at a Titan of your choice?
Yeah, sure. Want to do a faction Titan?
Oh, let's do it before you do a faction Titan. Oh, that's the Moloch.
Oh, too late.
Too late. The Moloch.
There's a Moloch here.
The Moloch. God.
Everything that's involved into building a Moloch.
Wow.
In one picture. It's not readable.
So here's another question for you. It looks like you kind of have the tools. This reminds me a little bit of Eve Planets, which of course is gone. But it looks like you have this is very similar. You might even have the pieces together. Is the next challenge after you get through all these industry changes, would you entertain kind of reviving these planets to do all the planetary interaction stuff? Because this website looks almost perfect for that. All the tools seem to be here.
I hadn't considered it yet, to be honest, but maybe. It's
All right.
I tend to build whatever I happen to be interested in, and yeah, so might end up going there because we're going to see that Pi is going to be far more important into building a lot of stuff. So it might actually end up being on my list of stuff to add.
Yeah, Pi being PI.
No guarantees.
Planetary interaction, yeah, all the planetary stuff. Because it follows the very similar, right? What planets? What do I build? What's the interactions? There's a number of tiers of chains moving all the way up. Looks like the tools are here. Plus, the industry sell by, what do I do? Do I import? Do I drop it down on the planet? What's the planetary tag? All those things are kind of very similar to what you have set up here already. So It seems like a natural extension for me. But anyways, yeah. Oh well, someone's
there's
linking.
There's one already. It's real neat.
It's on.
Yeah.
It was actually released on Reddit, I think, on what was it, on Valentine's Day?
Yeah, that's right. This was released on Valentine's Day, which I thought was awesome. That's a good day to release.
Yes, yeah. I see this Hans won the planet. Just to talk about that, thanks for the link. This is a nice just to visualize. But then there's all the build stuff that he has here in this tool that isn't reflected in this tool, unless I'm not using it correctly. But this is a nice visualizer that you linked, by the way.
Okay.
Who was that who linked?
Let's move on to the last thing, which is what people really want to know is what's going to happen tomorrow. Like, how much more is something going to take? So you have some ratios to show us, right?
Yeah. So with those pictures, actually, let me see if I can. I'm going to probably have to swap to a different application on the stream. So give me a second.
All right, no problem. We dance in front of the curtain while the set's being changed behind, so we're used to it. What is your in-game character name, though? Is it Ravandel?
It's Ravandel. Darren is my main character. It's Ravandel. There's a lot of different Ravandels.
Oh, there are. Okay, there it is. Now we're not saying you need to send a misc, but if you want to say hello to him, there he is.
I do accept donations.
If you want to blue him up.
As contrary to what you might think, I am not mega rich and I don't have, not even one Titan, I suppose. So anyway.
Well, we're gonna make sure you put a fundraising page up there too.
All right, so let me swap this to this other Excel sheet that I have. Change windows.
Well, for those that don't know, for whatever reason, it's already been announced that tomorrow is going to be a patch day like no other. It's going to be a huge change into the industrial combinations to build things that we've been talking about for the last month. So that's actually going to happen. It's already confirmed by CCP.
Yes.
And so you're going to want to you're going to want to be prepared for that.
It seems like it doesn't want us. Okay, I'm just going to have to share my entire screen here. All right, there we go.
There it is. All right, let's look at these ratios.
So, yeah, let's look at the graphs first, I suppose. So basically what I have done is let's summarize it really roughly, then we'll go on the graphs and then maybe in some more detail afterwards. So what I have done is I have looked at, okay, for each hull class, from frigate, faction frigate, pirate frigate, whatever, all the way up to pirate titans, how much do you need to, like, what are the mineral requirements for them? And in the new changes, what is also the gas requirements, the R4 Mungu requirements, all that sort of stuff, fuel blocks, pi, etc., etc., etc. And then I have said, okay, how long does this actually take me to mine the minerals that I need to build this thing that I'm looking to build?
Yeah. Can you zoom in on that just so we can see the titles of the head? Yeah. And show us
It's a little bit
it's
wide.
hard. It's hard to read, but you have.
Yeah.
Do you have? Is this shared out? Can you give us a link to that?
I've shared the Excel page with you.
Do you mind if I share it, or do you want me?
Yeah,
to...
no, go ahead. Go ahead.
Okay, I'll grab it.
That's probably easier. I don't know if you could place to share it, but yeah. So basically, what I've looked at is what is the hours that I need to mine all the different minerals to actually build the thing that I want to build, and then how is it going to change pre-patch and post-patch. Now, for that, I have made some graphs, which we'll show first. So, for example, we know that, well, essentially everything battlecruiser and smaller is going to either be easier to build or not going to take as many minerals, but it's going to be cheaper, or it's going to be less complex to build. And then once we start hitting battleships, there's going to be more involved, and as we go up in size, it's going to be more and more complex. Right. So, for example, here, what I've graphed here is like, okay, if we want to build a battleship pre-change, you can see I think in this case, I've taken a Hulk mining something like 2,200 cubic meters a minute. Anyway, a Hulk with some bonuses mining more.
But you've standardized the amount of time it would take for you to mine what is needed. So you've got a standard, and it's a Hulk. And okay, so these are all compared to the same standard.
Yeah. I'm sure the numbers will be off by like up 10, 20%, down 20%, stuff like that. But if you're looking at it's all about the relative ratios and the order of magnitude, right? So, for example, what you can see is like with a battleship, okay, pre-changes, it takes me about 8 hours to build, to mine everything that I need to build a battleship. Post-changes, there's going to be some R4 Mungu that I now need to mine, like the hydrocarbons and that sort of stuff, to build some of the new components. But that will give me a part of the minerals that I already need as an excess as well. So I'm mining this R4 Mungu. When I'm mining this R4 Mungu, I also, as a result, get some pyrite, and I will get some Maxilon, I think it is. And then those parts are already needed into building that battleship, so I can include it in the total time. And then you see that actually to build a battleship after the changes, it's almost the exact same amount of mining time. The only change is that, hey, now I also need some fuel blocks, about 4 million ISK worth of current prices, and I need about 9 days of a pi planet building pi. So given that one character, you can have 6 planets, I believe. So it's like 1.5 day of worth of pi with one character. Um,
Can you zoom in a bit more so people can see the numbers there? Just a couple more. There you go. That's a little bit
so there we
better.
go.
Yeah. So what we're
that's for
seeing on the left hand side is the pre-change. On the right hand side is the post-change. You can see the composition changes, and the blue is minerals. I'm sorry.
Exactly.
Those
Yeah,
are
well,
hours.
the blue is classic asteroid ores, right? So your Veldspar, your I don't know, spodumene. And the R4 is the moon goo that you need from, well, for example, from the high sec moons that have a lot of R4 goo.
So for those that don't know about industry, R's are for rarity. That's what the R stands for. And so there's 4, 8, 16. Ooh, what is there? 4,
it's
8.
all the way up to 64.
Yeah, up to 64.
So, yeah, it's 4, 8, 16, 32, and 64.
Thank you. And so then R4's, rarity 4, is the most common of moon minerals.
Yes. So, yeah, so anyway, so with a battleship, you can see that, okay, the total amount that I actually need to mine isn't really going up much at all. It's just the composition is going to change, and I'm going to need some fuel blocks, and I need some pi planet manufacturing. Then next up in class, there is dreadnoughts. And with dreadnoughts, we can actually see there is a lot of changes.
It's a lot less ore that you need to mine for it.
Yeah, well, you're still mining ore, but it's going to be moon ore. Right?
I see. Yeah.
The
gray is the moon ore.
Yeah. So what you actually see is that I think it's relatively common knowledge, is that what they have done with the capitals is that the capitals are going to require a lot more pyrite and a lot less titanium than they used to be in the past, right? And I think also more maxillon. And pyrite and maxillon, well, the capitals are going to need more, but that's also the minerals that you end up getting from mining R4 Mungu as a side product. Right, so if you're mining R4 Mungu, you're mainly there to get hydrocarbons or evaporate deposits, the R4 Mungus, but once you're refining those as a side product, you will also get a lot of pyrite and maxillon. Now that pyrite and maxillon already goes into building that dreadnought, so you don't have to then mine it anymore from asteroid ores. So as a result, you have to mine way less asteroid ores, and now you'll have to mine a lot of the R4 Mungu instead.
I see. Even though you're getting some minerals from the moon mining.
Yeah. So you're getting with the moon mining, what you're really after is the Mungu, the R4 Mungu.
Right.
And but you also get a lot of pyrite and maxillon as a side product, essentially.
As a byproduct.
And that pyrite and maxillon.
So that's the reason we're seeing so much gray here. That's the moon mining hours that you need to spend, because you will get some minerals from that. So you can spend less time mining just straight ore.
Yeah.
Okay.
There's a funny detail there that's going to be important in a little bit. Pretty interesting story, I think. Well, fact anyway. We'll get into that. But yeah, so the R4 Mungu will give you a lot of pyrite and maxillon. Capitals are going to need much more pyrite and maxillon, but you're already getting that from that R4 Mungu. So you can straight away use it for the capital. Then all the other stuff that you need to mine is only this blue part over here now. So it's maybe about half as much asteroid ore that you need to actually mine. And on top of that, of course, there's now going to be wormhole and high-sec space gas that you're going to need as well for capitals.
And that's the orange. So that's huffing.
That's the orange.
That's huffing hours.
Yep, huffing hours. With there, I've set, I think it is like a prospect with some very small mining bonus is what my speed rate for hours of gas moving is.
Yeah.
So
well, Rev, this is my question to you. Why did you put it in terms of hours and not price?
Well, what do you think?
Well, we talked about this earlier. Tell us why you went hours. Why that makes sense.
So the prices are all over the place right now. Partly because, well, there's already scarcity. The scarcity is a phenomena right now. It's a lot harder to mine all the asteroid ores that you want. You can't find places where you just can put your ore qual on a rock for 2 hours and keep on mining straight away. As a result, all the prices have been increasing. Then lately, now with the industry changes are announced, of course, everybody's panic building dreads and everything else before the mineral changes start hitting, or the material changes. So as a result, all the prices are really inflated and out of proportions with how they'll be in the future. So yeah, instead of that, I've chosen like, okay, I'll try to the best that I can, reduce it down to hours of actual work. And then we look at, okay, relatively how much hours was it? How much hours is it going to be?
So you took the market right out of the equation and said, let's go from labor that you have to do, how long it takes you to do something. And that's what we'll compare with the before and after. And that makes sense.
Yep, exactly. There's some details there because of how I had to change from minerals to hours. There's still some market prices involved in there. But anyway, that's what we're doing here. We're looking at just, okay, how much more difficult is it going to be to build this before and after? There's a lot of extra details. It's all about order of magnitude, right? Because with gas huffing, it's always harder to find gas sites to mine than it is typically to find your own moon with R4 Moongoo. So, maybe 1 hour of prospect mining should be 1.5 hours of prospect mining because you have to involve the scanning as well.
Right.
But it's all about relative size, orders of magnitude. So yeah. So with the Dreadnought, you can see, okay, it's now mostly going to be moon ore mining. There's going to be some asteroid ore mining as well, still about 50% as much as it used to be. And there's going to be gas huffing. On top of that, there is now also the fuel blocks that you need to react your Moongoo into the products that you need for your capital. And there's also, of course, the planetary interaction that you need to do, and the exploration loot. Of course, the exploration loot, nobody knows what it's going to be like, so I can't really put a number on that yet.
Right. That doesn't exist yet. So those are additional variables not included in this.
Yep. But based on this, of course, it's very it's very hard to give a number in public. But based on this, I would expect it's about 3 to 4 times more work to build a Dreadnought than it used to be, roughly.
Wild.
Of course, with that, we have to put in context as well that scarcity has been a really big thing lately, and we will likely see, now that these material requirements are going to change or go up, I imagine that we will likely see changes where finding the asteroid ore and finding the gas and exploration loot is going to be easier over time. That scarcity. So the materials that you need are going to be increased, and I expect that eventually, relatively soon, it will follow also that it's going to be a bit easier again to mine and all that sort of stuff.
Right.
Post scarcity. So
let's look at the bigger ships here.
Yep. So here we have the super carrier and a Titan. What you see with this is, with a super carrier, it's vastly dominated by the amount of Moongoo you need. Carrier, a Titan, a little bit less so. But you can also see that as you go up in size, you also go up in amount of pipe planets that you need. Right? Because, a Dreadnought is about 670 days worth of pipe planet production. A super carrier is about 6,000 days. And a Titan is about 22,000 days.
Wow.
Yep.
Holy crap.
Yeah, it's orders of magnitude bigger.
Yep. Of course, one account, 3 characters, you can have 18 planets. So one account, you could do it in about 1,000 days, Yeah,
you could get there.
Yeah.
It's a group effort.
Yep.
Now, you can say it's 15 years, but you're not meant to build one on your own. It's supposed to be a corporate or alliance job to build a Titan, like it used to be.
Yeah, exactly. So I suppose we can go into a topic that is going to be a little bit curious. Is there anything here that we want to hit on still?
Are you going to the ratios next? Because you did have a graph for those ratios.
Oh, right. Yes, but I'm going to have to...
I can send you the link. I posted it. Here, I'll post it inside of the chat.
Let me see, inside of the Talking Station chat, or which one?
Yeah, inside of Twitter. I'll do it one more time.
Hey, there we go.
That one,
yep.
Yeah.
So this here is another graph that I made. And this one is particular about, okay, how are the minerals going to be distributed between the different hull classes, right? So when we CCP has always been talking about how do you call it? Disconnecting the requirements for the really big ships from the smaller ships, right?
Mm-hmm.
So they don't want it to be that a Titan is literally just building the same as building X million of frigates. Right.
Yeah, let me explain that just a little bit. So the reason that they're doing these production changes, one of the reasons is to draw on more resources in the game, and therefore they isolate the ingredients that go into a certain ship, which allows them to adjust the price point of the bigger ships without totally affecting the price point of the smaller ships, because they can tweak PI, for instance, or they can peak moon minerals, for instance, and that will change some ships, but it won't affect the subcapital ships, and they can leave those alone. And it's basically, it is a way for CCP to gain more control over the spread and cost of ships, because before, if you had a Titan, you only needed minerals for a Titan, essentially, and those same minerals could be used for 1,000 little ships, but so you didn't want that relationship to be so direct. And that's, again, the complexity of ingredients allows more dials to be turned by CCP to make adjustments.
Yeah, exactly that. And that's also what you can see. So in this case, we're just looking at the standard asteroid ores. So that's titanium up to megasite. This is the basic 7. And what you can see, okay, pre-change, all the ratios of how much titanium towards pyrite compared to maxillon you need. You can see all the way from frigate up to Titan, it's about the same ratio. So really, it really was the case that, okay, if you can build one Titan, you could also just build 1 million frigates with the same material, right?
Mm-hmm.
Post changes, we see a couple changes here. First of all, that the quote-unquote rare minerals, so that's the top 3, the noxium, zidor, and the megasite, which historically I think have only been available from nullsec. I'm not entirely sure on that. Anyway, so you see that the smaller hull classes, the frigate and the destroyer, don't need them anymore at all. Also, the frigates and the destroyers will mostly be dominated by the amount of titanium you need. Whereas if you go, and which is a high sec ore.
High sec ore,
right?
yeah.
Yep.
Good point.
If you go up into the size of ship that you're building, you will see that, okay, first of all, if I'm building a cruiser or larger, I am going to need my rarer minerals that are from null sec or low sec or etc. And also, I'm going to need them in different ratios. So if you see, if we go up in size class, we start moving from needing a large amount of titanium towards needing a very large amount of pyrite and maxillon instead.
Right.
So that is, you no longer need the same materials for a Titan as you do for a frigate. Well, you do, but in different ratios for Titan and for a frigate. So that's one of those aspects where they're going to be able to, where they're differentiating between hull classes and no longer having that inherent link there.
So the above graphs are common ores, and the lower graphs are the stuff that's more special.
Yeah,
The low
that's
sec,
just
basically.
Yeah, exactly. Well, yeah, low sec, null sec. It's not strictly that distinction. I've mainly done it because they are relevant, but if I put them in one very long table or one very long column, then you won't see how much megasite you need anymore, because you need like 500 megasite, when opposed to you need maybe 1 million titanium.
Yeah, a slice would be too small, so you split them out.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I've done there. And you can see that, smaller hull classes, they don't need some of the minerals. Anyway, so that's that's part of how the mineral changes are going to work when it comes to building the smaller hull classes compared to the bigger ones. Mm-hmm. The other thing, like we see here, is that, well, the really large ships are going to be, so battleships are going to need a little bit of R4 Moongu relative to how much asteroid ore. The capitals are going to need a lot of R4 Moongu.
Yeah,
relative to the amount of asteroid ore.
So clear on this graph just how imposing the moon ore is.
Yep.
Or the moon mining.
Now there is one thing that I have discovered, which is a little bit of interesting information. Might be anyway. What you do if you're mining all this R4 Moongu, right? You're mining all the R4 Moongu that you need to build a capital ship, And that's the hydrocarbons and that sort of stuff. Actually, if we go back into my web tool, right, so here we're talking about this atmospheric gases, hydrocarbons, silicates, etc. If you look at those, the vast majority of that stuff that you need, the Arvamungu, goes into something called a core temperature regulator. So if we look at my tool here in the tree viewer, you see, okay, core temperature regulator over here. To build a Titan, any Titan, I need 10,000 of them. 10,000 of those core temperature regulators is going to account for 90% of all the Arvamungu that I need to build my Titan. Right?
Mm-hmm.
So those core temperature regulators are going to be one of the core components for building capitals, actually, when you're looking at how much Arvamungu you need, and then what fraction of Arvamungu goes into these temperature regulators. So a battleship only needs one, and that one is this that one core temperature regulator is a large fraction of this R4. A standard capital, a dreadnought, needs 250. That is largely this part. A Titan or Titan needs 10,000, which is largely this one over here. So that core temperature regulator is going to be one of the components that I think anyway, is going to substantiate a large amount of the value of the hull.
Yeah. That's also what he just pointed out, can be a production choke point. So if you want to get into a business going to definitely be lucrative, you want to build those things.
Yeah, you'll have massive volumes of ISK flowing through. So yeah, and they're not very easy to hull.
Do you have the size on there? How big are they?
So what you can see for one Titan, you need 10,000 of them, and that's 10,000 or 10 million cubic meters. So that's about 10 freighters worth.
Yeah.
Of course, if you look at it in detail, what you can see is, okay, my 10 million cubic meters, 9.5 million cubic meters of those materials essentially is just water.
Jeez.
And water is just pie that you can make locally.
Yeah. Yeah.
So what you'll probably want to do is just buy pressurized oxidizers and reinforced carbon fiber here, hull those in, then build your water locally, and then from that you only need to hull in 1 million cubic meter of stuff instead of 10 million, right? Because you're building your pie locally.
Right. Much
and
better.
If you're doing that, then you have to do way less jump freightering, and it's way more sense. That's the sort of stuff that people are going to build their industry facilities around, probably, or their setup, their network around.
Yeah.
Making those decisions. Okay, what can I hull? What's actually better to build locally, and then hull the other little bits from other people.
Well, your shipping information here, or cargo space information, or scale or volume information, is so important for that reason alone. You just pointed it out.
Yep.
Like, you can develop strategy looking at this.
Exactly. That's the idea. So now we go into the interesting aspects, I suppose. Well, some other interesting aspects. So what I was talking about is with Arvamungu, once you're when you're mining that and you're reprocessing it, you will end up with a lot of pyrite and maxillon, right? Now with a battleship, all that pyrite and maxillon that you make, because you only need like one of these core temperature regulators and some other stuff, you don't need that much Arvamungu, so you can just use it all up into your capital ship that you're building. In something like a dreadnought or a Titan, maybe, at least a dreadnought anyway, you will actually end up with an excess amount of pyrite. So over here, I have to mine all this Mungu here to actually be able to build my capital ship, right? To get all those hydrocarbons and evaporated deposits, etc., to build the core temperature regulators and also other modules, it's not just those, to build my capital ship. But as a result from mining all that Arvamungu, I'm going to get a lot of pyrite and maxillon as a side product. When you're looking at that, you're actually going to get more pyrite and maxillon than what you need to build your capital hull. So you will actually have leftovers in essence.
Is that somehow balanced the amount? Have you looked? Is that like just enough to do a battleship or just enough to do a dreadnought? Like, what's the excess amount? Have you correlated it downstream?
It can be rather large. It's surprisingly large sometimes. Like with a what is it? I think with a freighter, you get like six times the amount of pyrite that you actually need to build the freighter hull.
So might as well throw that into some battleships along with your freighter.
Exactly, yeah. And also, what the interesting thing is, of course, is that pyrite and Maxlon is really high volume. Well, especially pyrite's really high volume. Anyway, I'm fairly sure that these numbers are accurate, even though this is a surprising result to me. That there's like so much pyrite excess that you're going to get from this Mungu. So I'm not entirely sure what's the deal with that. I'm fairly certain those numbers are accurate, but I may have to double check them. But it might end up being the case that pyrite and Maxlon become a little bit of a trash mineral,
a surplus
mineral.
Yeah,
exactly.
A byproduct.
What is another side of this, though, is that pyrite is not at all easy to hull, right? Because it's a physical mineral. You need a lot of it to actually build a capital ship, even though there is a lot available from the R4 Mungu mining. But it does mean that if you can, you probably want to preferably mine your R4 Mungu in the same place that you're building your capital ships as well, right? Because then the pyrite is already available locally. Whereas otherwise you will have to, jump in freighters worth of just surplus-ish pyrite minerals to still build your capitals if you're also hauling in your Mungu from somewhere else. So this is all part of this equation of how I'm going to set up my industry facilities to build what I want in the end.
Yeah, this is super advanced stuff, which is looking at what your harvesting rates are, how much you're going to use, what byproducts you'll have, how much hauling potential you have, and calculating all that into a scenario where you say, I need to build this stuff locally and other stuff I can run to the market for that. And that's fantastic stuff.
So there's when you look at that compared to pre-changes, there's a vast more depth available for setting up your, either doing a lot of things on your own or setting it up with other people, making a network, having everybody do their job, their niche, let's say. There's some real extra complexity on how to set this all up correctly. And I'm sure that's something that people are going to find out over the next 6 months or so.
Yeah, that's really where I think the reason it's taking, and I talked to Kenneth about this, who's on the CSM, massive industrialist, and he worked on this for some 300 hours. He spent a lot of time on this. This is not his idea. He just helped with the calculations to smooth them out so that they weren't so, there weren't any blind spots that CCP. This is all CCP's idea. Let's get that straight. But in spending so much time with it, he said it took him a good month just to get his head around all the moving parts because everything's moving. And I think you're demonstrating just how many details you have to consider, to hold into your head and consider before you actually make a plan.
Yeah, so what you'll probably is going to happen is that a lot of people are just going to think, okay, this is too complex. I'm looking at this subsection here. I'm going to build only core temperature regulators. I'm going to only build this FTL component. That's it. And then I'll just trade it to other people. Because the whole picture is going to be basically a full-time job figuring it out.
Yeah, exactly.
And then I have spent, first of all, I already had quite a bit of knowledge with making the website, and then I've spent additionally quite a few days figuring out all these numbers and how it's going to roughly interact with each other.
Yeah. Now, some of the fears that people have is like, hey, you're taking something away from me. I used to be able to just build a battleship and voila, I could just do it all myself. And now I have to go into nullsec to get a certain ingredient or whatever for the ship build. And we just want to remind you that there were parts of ships that you always needed to go to some other area to get. You just bought it, whatever it was, whether it was Megasite or something else, you just bought it at the market. And it's the same scenario. It's just more a variety of things you need to buy.
Yep, exactly. And you might want to say, okay, buying everything is going to be too voluminous. I can't haul everything. So I'm just going to do my low tier Pi, which is a lot of volume, but not that much ISK and not that much time. Going to do that locally, buy the other little bits of materials which are more expensive and harder to make, but are not as much volume, combine them, and then build my thing.
Mm-hmm. Can you throw a carrier up there somehow, Thanatos, or yeah? The reason I'm looking at carriers is these things are going to be complex, and they kind of seem to be in a little bit of a short supply. At least we heard Tess saying we're kind of soft on carriers. We have plenty of dreads. We need more carriers. And I've been hearing that from other people too, that there aren't, like, the carrier population isn't as high as it was. So if there are stockpiles and people burn through stockpiles, probably one of the first things that will be interesting to build might be a carrier. I'm thinking that might be. So if I wanted to set up a carrier building operation, like, what advice would you have for me?
What advice would I have? Let's see.
That's a tough question. Yeah, you don't have to.
Yeah, I mean, prices are totally unknown yet. What's going to be available in large volumes in local or GDA markets is also unknown yet. What advice do I have?
Yeah, it's I have to look at all these details to figure it out. But I think this tool really helps in isolating, like, what I should build locally, what I should farm locally, what I should make relationships to buy off other people, like gases, for instance.
Yeah,
like, all that is the key to success in the future, is figuring out what you want to focus on. If you want to do the final build, find suppliers. If you want to be a supplier, find clients. Like, those are the things you should be looking into right now.
Exactly. So, well, one of the things is there's some really complex parts which at one point reduce into something very simple. Like, for example, the FTL interlink module is really complex as to everything that you need to input to build it.
Yeah, look at all that stuff.
But of course, you could just buy it from somebody else, and it's actually quite easy to haul. So there will probably be people who will, as a niche, only be building FTL interlink communicators.
Yeah, good client
specifically
for something to buy.
Sorry, yeah, exactly. Specifically, it is the only component that needs these high-tier wormhole gases. So who knows? I'm not saying it will happen that way, but maybe that's something that some wormhole groups will specialize into building those components and then hauling them out. Also for wormholes, a lot of the lower-tier wormhole gases, once you refine them, are going to be quite a bit smaller, so they're going to be easier to haul. So what is likely going to happen for these people that live in wormhole spaces, they don't haul out the wormhole gas, but they instead might haul out the reacted wormhole stuff, because it's just that much easier to move around. Yeah. And as a consequence, of course, also it's probably in higher demand, because if somebody in nullsec is trying to build their Titan, it's going to be much easier for him to just buy those components in GDA and then ship them, than instead of just buying the raw wormhole gases.
You know, one of the cool things, I work in advertising, and one of the cool things about advertising is you realize a lot of times they're just buying up ad space. This is going to make sense in a second. You just buy up ad space with really basic commercials. And I was thinking, why are you buying up so much ad space with such a basic commercial? And it's called, I forget what it's called, but you're depriving other people of that ad space. So it might be interesting in the future is the level of warfare that comes into logistic attacks by denying people access to resources. That might mean a lot more choke points on the market, or diplomacy to say, hey, wormhole guys, don't sell this stuff to these people, and make it really hard for them to build their arsenal again. All that kind of gameplay is now much more a reality than it was before.
Yep. Of course, when something like that happens, those people who aren't aligned with that group will see, hey, there's a lot of demand for this stuff. I'm going to build that. And then they'll be able to charge much higher prices, because there's a lot of demand for it, and it's being manipulated.
Right. But now you have ISK attrition, which now matters. And when money is an object, people have to make different decisions than when money is no object, which is what we had for the last 3-4 years.
Yeah. Yep,
very
exactly
cool.
That.
You got anything else you want to tell us, Ravandel, before we wrap up?
Let me see. I had anything else specifically? Well, I suppose that table that has been linked, right?
They weren't able to access it, so I don't know if it's being shared or not.
Ah, right.
I didn't want to bother you with that.
Did you do any of the analysis for the faction, for the frigates and for the cruisers? Because those are also changing too, right?
Yes.
The Empire and the pirate faction chips are changing those. So did you do that analysis?
Yeah. So
Okay.
in that table that I was
Oh,
talking
right there,
about,
hook bill. There,
there's
they are, right there.
info.
I'm sorry.
They're there. Take all these numbers with a grain of salt because prices are weird and mining amounts are weird right now, and it's going to change in the future, and etc. etc. I'm sure CCP is going to still change some stuff as well. Take it all with a grain of salt. This is roughly the layout of what it looks like in amount of hours effort into building something specific.
Yeah.
So what you can see, for example, with a frigate, T1 frigate.
Can you zoom in a lot more to make? Yeah.
All right.
I see. So real quick, the green are for navy, and I think the darker green are for pirate.
Yes.
And the white is the vanilla. So there you go.
Yep. So you can see that, okay, number of hours of mining asteroid ore doesn't really change between pirate or standard, but you see, okay, there's some more R4 Mungu that then gets involved into actually making some of those new faction components. And also there's going to be gas involved. One interesting thing is that anything subcapital, basically anything subcapital that is faction will need some gas, but it will not need wormhole space gas. Wormhole space gas is only involved in once you're starting to talk about capital manufacturing. If that makes sense.
Yes, that's very good point. So wormhole gas into capital, not other things.
Yep. So faction ships, yes, they will need gas, but only the normal kind of gases. And if you look at the Tree-Viewer, and I'll go to, I don't know, something like an Ortrus. There you can see, okay, what is actually happening over here? Well, as compared to normal Caracal, what I need extra is these special components over here. Now, this auto integrity preservation seal, something you also see with the battleships, life support backup units, something you'll see with battleships as well. You'll need some of that for faction ships, but you need what I would like to call the faction specific component, essentially. Right, so there's two components that are needed for an Ortrus, because an Ortrus is related to two different factions, and I think it's what is it? It's called Eire, and what's the other one?
Sisters of Eve, isn't it? So
no, it's Galante, I think.
Yeah. Anyway, to fly an Ortrus, you need
but I'm trying to think of who's it. I'll check it out.
two factions of isn't Mortis Legion? I think is the Ortrus.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah. But
so that's Caldari and
Galante,
I think,
right.
yeah, because it's on the north. All right. Yeah. Anyway, yeah, right.
But anyway, so every faction is going to have their own new faction-specific component, and that's the stuff that's going to need to be built from these new exploration drops, like the condensers, as well as some other stuff. The wormhole, the case-based gases, basically.
It is Caldari and Galante. So
yeah.
So you need parts from both races, is what you're saying.
That's right, to do the factions. That's right.
And what is basically happening is if you want to have a frigate, you only need like 1 or 2. If you have a cruiser, you need 10. If you have a battle cruiser, you think you need, I don't know, 25 or something. I don't remember. And then if you have a navy faction, you only need 1 type, of course, because it's only related with Caldari, for example. But if you have a pirate faction, you need both types of this racial component, let's say.
Yeah, I like that. Race matters.
Yeah, exactly. And I believe those condensers are always also only found in regions which are corresponding to that race as well. So
therefore, stimulating trade.
Exactly. If there's a lot of demand for Macarials and a lot of people want their Minmatar race ships, then there's going to have to be a lot of Explo in Minmatar space to find those things.
Yeah. My God, the more I think about this, the more it's a gigantic work program for HiSec. The amount of things that are going to be needed.
Yep.
Yeah, and the pricing is going nuts. Just for a giggle, I went and looked at the prices just for the Caldari freighter, the Charon, however you like to say it.
Sure.
Right now it's like for the parts, just for the capital armor plates, capital construction parts, capital cargo bay, and the capital propulsion engines. 4.1 billion ISK just to buy those parts right now in JITA. And the freighter itself is only selling for 2.1.
Oh.
Insane. And of course, it's just going to continue. I just picked the freighter because I was looking at it.
Well, again, prices are crazy. They may go down. They may go up. It depends on the work ethic of the populace. So, and the opportunities that people see.
At the moment, which is why I went with this hours of work approach, is I expect that's given how prices are, that's a more reasonable factor for estimating the long-term price of something, right?
Yeah.
Like we said, a dreadnought is maybe going to take 3 to 4 times the work as it used to. Now, before scarcity and before scarcity's really hit, and before anybody knew about any of these industry changes, I think dreadnoughts were selling for maybe 1.52 bill, something like that.
Mm-hmm.
So long term, it's an estimate. We never know how post scarcity will look like. But maybe it might be 3 to 4 times that. So a dreadnought might be 6 to 8 bill, something like that.
Yeah. Well, and that's it right there, right? Like one group could control the blue hours, right? We can throw enough people at the blue hours, asteroid mining, in nullsec, for instance. But what they've done, what CCP has done, is said we're not going to tax the ore. We'll make it scarce, and that hurts. But here's the double whammy: that we're going to make the blue scarce. But now we're going to add 2 different components, moon ore and gases. And now you got to spend time getting those, and more time getting those. So you got different things. You got to spend more time getting them. And that hits everybody the same, large or small organizations, I believe. Well, smaller get hurt because they have to probably buy stuff. But I just love the idea of CCP attacking a problem from many different directions, especially hitting the man hours.
Yep.
Because that's game time, that's play time, that's not something you can just AFK as easily. Okay, fantastic show, lots of stuff in here. It's a big eve, right? We're on the eve of these changes that are coming tomorrow. They're going to just blow everybody.
The eve of the changes. Wow.
Eve of the changes. There is one thing we'll end on here. I just want to make sure you don't have anything else, Ravandel. Did you show everything you wanted to?
You just got out for me.
Did you show everything that you wanted to?
Yeah, I think so. I will say again, a part of Eire Engineers, we have a really a really good corp, I think. But we love doing our own small, medium gang size PvP fleets as well. I'm actually quite a big PvP player. But yeah, we do all this sort of stuff as well. So if people are interested in joining a corp, then we're also looking for people.
All right. Who wouldn't want to hang out with you, Mastermind? How do they? What's the name of the corp? Go ahead and tell us one more time, or type it in.
It's Eire, it's Eire Engineers or Eire Engineers. I can't type in the Twitch chat right now. I'll post it in the TIS Discord maybe.
But you hang out with us at TIS. So if you guys want to meet Ravandel, you can hang out in TIS and get information from him there. But yeah.
Yep.
There it is. Eire Engineers, now part of Recon. You know, yes. Apollo 428?
I know. I've not spoken to him that much, but yeah, I know.
Yeah, he's your leader.
I've talked to him actually when we were first looking at joining the group.
Yeah, he's a fun guy. Okay, so the one other thing that we didn't really cover here, because it's a whole nother program, and we're going to have a different show on it, and that is what's really interesting is that Catalysts and Talosis are both going down in price because it's a battle cruiser and a destroyer. Those are all going down in price, and those are ganking ships. And what's going up in price are freighters and jump freighters. And so basically the equation for ganking is fantastic in the future if you're into that kind of lifestyle. So we're going to take a closer look at that relationship, especially in the wake of these industry changes on Thursday. And we'll be talking to somebody formerly from Code, I believe, but it won't be who you think it is. It's not anybody. It's Zenius Desif, and I believe he streams as well. So we're going to look at that relationship at ganking with one of the guys that does it all the time. So that will be on Thursday. On Wednesday, we're going to do, as we said, a look at the I guess, public declarations that people in the war made over the weekend, which would be like a Matani, a Vili, a Pro God Legend, or Gobbins. They made speeches we talked about at the beginning of the show. We're going to look into those and actually play the audio and have reactions to what they're saying and break them down for you so you can see what they're trying to do. There's what they say, and there's what they're trying to do. And we're going to separate those things for you. And then tomorrow, we'll be talking with Kenneth again. Maybe we'll have Rav back, but we're going to look at what we suspect are going to be the massive changes to industry. So all day tomorrow, we'll be looking at these industry changes and put a good show together for you to try to understand what the reality is. We'll see what actually is patched in compared to what was talked about.
Yep.
No easy task.
All right. Well, I mean, if you want me to back at some point to talk numbers and industry and stuff like that again, then I'm happy to. So.
Great. Well, we love having you.
Yeah, it might be a good strategy to divide and conquer if the changes are going to be as big as they are with the, because they've prepped pretty good. I would expect there's going to be no immediate changes, but there's always a little surprise in the box sometimes, and maybe there was, or maybe there's an oopsie and they don't, they miss something or something. So it'd be good. Well, it's we'll see what happens tomorrow. It's almost like Christmas Eve here, in my mind. If you're an industrialist, it's like, what's going to happen tomorrow? What am I getting? What am I getting under the tree?
I would go back and watch.
It's going to be surprising.
Yeah, I would go back and watch the show that we just did like a couple times to get your head around like the stuff. We're gonna hopefully that tool will be up and running today for tomorrow, and then you guys can visualize what your strategy is going to be. I think that's huge.
Yep.
One last
Thanks.
thing. Wait, sorry.
I was just going to simply say thanks to the audience for hanging in there for 2 hours.
Right.
Yeah, it's a very long one.
Yeah. Go ahead. Sorry, Matarol.
It's okay. I just wanted some big takeaways, and that is remember that you can't do it all yourself anymore, or it's going to put a big strain on you unless you're doing small stuff. So start developing relationships with other players. I think that'll benefit you, and maybe start looking.
Or of course, look at your markets.
Exactly. Or look at your markets and maybe start building a market. Maybe you build a mid-tier thing and you start populating a local market. Don't think of playing Eve the way you played it before. After tomorrow, everything's changing. This is maybe the most significant update we've seen in possibly since structures came into effect. And before that, maybe, I don't even know. Could be since wormholes came into effect. This is one of those changes that is gigantic. It changes the game in fundamental ways, as you've seen, because everything relies on the underpinnings of people building things for people. And all that has just created incredible demand for other players to go and get things that are needed to build those things. So it's a huge, huge change. All right, man.
No, exactly that. I'm sure there will be many iterations to follow, though. But exactly that.
Well, we'll be seeing a lot more of you, Rev. Thanks for coming by today and staying up late over in the EU time zone.
Yep.
We'll try to do it earlier. All right. Thanks, Rundle. Appreciate you being here. And thank you guys for hanging around with Talking in Stations. We'll be back tomorrow after the big patch. It's patch day. Have a great night. We'll see you tomorrow.
Bye-bye.